So let's just drop in, seeing, with whom we are here together. And somehow, sensing in the body that the benefit of meeting with a group, we have built a connection with over the last year or so. Some of us who come on a regular basis will particularly, have a sense of that this is a real support. A lot doesn't need to be said or figured out because we already know why we are coming here. That feels, for me, it feels like a balm, on the heart and a sense of support, soft support, I can lean into. And then when we have that support, then we can, turn our mind towards all kinds of things which are maybe difficult to, open up to if we are on our own. Last week, I have been speaking about, having the courage to walk with our question, and through that, slowly but surely becoming the answer to our question. Not an intellectual way, but through our life starts to respond to this intention. And, this emerging response is coming through because we are really relating to our calling. Because this calling does really fuel our individual and collective evolution. And it might not be something we can yet put into words, but it's an intuition. It's a sensing in the heart, that we feel called to respond to the calling of the biosphere to participate in the immune system, to participate in bringing new ways of relating to our bodies and to our world, so that we can meet, the challenges of this evolutionary threshold. Instead of getting lost in the ups and downs of only, focusing on the difficulties and focusing on that which is not working any longer and getting lost in depression, we find ways to express our calling in our lives, even in small ways, in the most small ways, like, how you're going about relating to your plant relatives in your garden, for example. This is a beautiful place to start. And, this is where I want to go today with this sharing. So we need to find ways to express our deep calling for care and love, and we start where we are. Like I see Crystal with, I think it's Matteo, and Crystal expressing love and care, how she is with him, and then somebody else has their pet with them in the icon, and Jack just spoke about coming back from the garden. And this is different ways, how we start to express this attitude more consciously in our daily lives, but then turn it also towards the big questions. Because we are all, we are really all indigenous to the planet, and our bodies are the key for unlocking archaic memories, for accessing a vaster grounding inside of this evolutionary journey. And it's the evolutionary journey of the planet, which is our home, and our own species, and all species, really. We all species together make up the planet. And we are no exception. We are just one of many. And if we are relating to it in a different way, we can access the support and the holding, which is already there. Rather than needing to buy something else or invent something new, we can remember that we already held, that we are already deeply embedded in Earth as Earth. And, making space inside of ourselves to think as the planet. And I have here a little quote by Bioakumulafe, which is one Nigerian trickster, as he calls himself. And he speaks about making sanctuary for thinking along with the planet. Making sanctuary inside of ourselves, and then also making sanctuary as our online group. That's a sanctuary. And then there is also the Aloka Earth Room, which is also a sanctuary where we can meet in person. And this Wednesday group, we meet virtually. And it's all different versions of making sanctuary and having a support system to listen in more deeply. And then, listening into these strong winds of change, which are showing up, on so many places on the planet, in Gaza, in the Ukraine, in so many other war-torn regions of the world, where all of the exasperation and the despair, I think is exasperated by the planetary situation in terms of the climate crisis. Because there's a sense of being trapped. And we want to gather, go underneath of this repetition compulsion of these negative ways of thinking and becoming more and more exhausted and lost. And the first thing, we need to do is we need to slow down. We need to slow down our pace of running, and we need to pay attention to our breath and allow the breath, to take us into the body. So let's do that right now before we continue with this session. So find a posture which works for you for about 45 minutes. And allowing the breath to take you into the body. Sensing the weight of the body on the cushion, on the chair. And just, deeply knowing that solutions from a disconnected place will not gain traction. But we need to reroute in the web of life and then allow solutions to come from there, to emerge from there, to sink along with the planet. Because through this rerouting in interbeing, our perception gets expanded and enhanced. And that expands the solutions we can see. And they might be actually very simple, because they are solutions which come from a heart which is becoming more mature and no longer has a relationship to the biosphere as a parent, but has a relation to the biosphere as a participant, a responsible participant. Which means, responding rather than reacting. And when we want to access that way of being, what comes up first is our unresolved issues, our trauma, our old stories. That's why we need the grounding, so we can meet this material in order to metabolize it. So just let's notice that we have arms and legs. We have these bodies, mammalian bodies. Closely related to the higher apes. And there's many systems in our bodies which are working for us without us getting involved, really. First, the respiratory system, the breathing process. Then the digestive system. Both of those systems keep us in constant exchange with the biosphere through breathing in what plant life provides, oxygen, and then eating and digesting what plant and other beings provide for us as food. That goes often quite unnoticed until there's some kind of obstruction coming up, and then we start to notice how deeply connected we are. And then the circulatory system, the bloodstream pumped, around the body, by the heart. The nervous system, which allows us to sense with the whole body. The fluid system keeps the body moist. We know the body is over 70% made out of water element. Which flows into the body through drinking and then is pumped around and then comes out again through going to the bathroom, crying, sweating. Bleeding. So this body is really like a piece of land where all kinds of, elements, life forms move through. And the skeletal system, which holds the body up. And then the endocrine system, the hormonal system. So many systems, such complex coordination. It's like an orchestra without a director, without a conductor, or at least without a visible conductor. It's a different form of intelligence which isn't centrally organized, but is permeating all of it. It's immanent. And that's that kind of intelligence we want to open ourselves up towards. We want to support that harmony, try to support the healing of the biosphere. And we can start by honoring the intelligence which is already operating every moment just in these simple bodies of ours. That's where we start. The sense of awe, the sense of wonder which comes to us, if we really take it in, what's already happening every moment. And against that background, we can see the stories our minds are telling us. The stories of blame and fear. And I'm saying this, because I watch my own mind. And seeing, how blame and fear, how they're deeply interconnected. If we can't really meet our own sense of dis-ease and fear of uncertainty, then what we do to have a temporary relief is we blame somebody. either, somebody outside of ourselves, somebody in the past, somebody in the present, or we blame ourselves. Because that seems to be like a relief, but it's only a relief for a moment. So, learning to see that connection between blame and fear and bring in some kindness, kindness towards that knee-jerk reaction, because it's just how we are if we are not, fully realized. There is always an element of that greed, hatred, and delusion. But then, if we don't watch that and get a handle on it, it can become very intense. That's what we can see, now, for example, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the Ukraine, can become very intense, can get really out of hand. And also what's already happening, what has been set in motion in regards to the biosphere. So the repercussions, of letting that go unchecked are super significant, and we need to turn towards it. Together, it's not our personal problem, even it also manifests in our personal character and minds and hearts, but it's not just a personal problem, it's a collective one as well. And we are together in it. And and I think from that recognition, there's a bit more opportunity, to meet all of this with softness and remembering kindness. Humankind, remembering that word, humankind. That has the kindness already in it. Without that, we will not stand a chance, to transform and mature. It's a powerful quality, to be able to sustain kindness when we are challenged. And it always needs to start with kindness towards ourselves. It's imperative, to feel the contraction, to be okay with it, and then we can respond according to our intention, rather than, just reacting in order to relieve ourselves from the pressure of energy, getting triggered. And it starts, with very small things at home, with the people you live with, the pets maybe even you live with. And then, once we get somehow a handle on this, we can start to also ask another question. The question is, how can I serve? How can I express this calling? And if I'm already, having found the way to express it, how can I express that calling more fully? And what's in the way, in terms of our own patterns, of our own stories we tell ourselves. Some of them, individual, some of them ancestral, and some of them simply cultural collective. As we are freeing up the energy from those old, patterns, we can find a way, to benefit the whole with this freed up energy. So, as soon as we are really willing to, to pay the price basically for transformation, which is to be with discomfort of not going back, into these old stories for too long. And then we can, start to listen into an emerging vision, which comes through us because we have actively, created some space where it can come into, where it can be recognized. So, it's relatively simple in terms of structure, but of course, in terms of staying with the transformation process, that is not simple. But then we create space by not engaging the old stories of blame and fear, and that into that space through our intention, to serve as part of the immune system, some kind of vision will emerge into it. And then as we are practicing, we start to make more space for the flowering of the vision. And the challenging part of it is to work with the old thought patterns. And it's not about not having any of the thoughts, but it's about how we meet them. And particularly how we, cultivate the kindness and the softness. So that those thought patterns, they can be there as long as they are there, but not as our boss, but more like as our children, we take care of them Don't chase them away, but you just welcome them and look them in the eye, and then they start to evaporate. And I remember when I was in England with Ajahn Sumedho in Amaravati Buddhist monastery, he was already in his 60s, I think, then. I heard him say that quite often after he gives a Dharma reflection, he would beat himself up afterwards. He shouldn't have said this and he should have said that. And, that was a sense of relief for me that even he, a great teacher, he had it still going on. I didn't notice at all when I was looking at him. I wouldn't have guessed that he has that, but he does. He did. So, we are not particularly having a difficult, deal with our mind, but it seems to be that's the way it works. It takes a long time for those habits to fall away. It's like a spinning wheel. If you stop pedaling, it's still gonna turn and turn for quite a long time. It's not about not having those thoughts, but it's about how we relate to them. That's something we can really have choice about. We focus on that, and the rest is not up to us. But what can be really helpful, and empowering is at the same time as we are working in this way, we are also listening into how we can benefit, how we can contribute, how we can be part of the immune system. What's our offering? How can we serve it? Because we need both. We need to work on ourselves, but we also need to have something which draws us out into a more mature participant, something which inspires the heart and connects us to something bigger than ourselves. And this is the evolutionary journey of our species. Takes us back into deep time, connects us with our ancestors who have come before us and who have been going through lots of challenges themselves in order for us, to be here today. And just as they have all, made their contributions, so are we also contributing by passing on life form and opening up new possibilities, by daring, to listen to the calling of life, how it wants to find a way to continue here. And as we are engaging in these questions, we also transform our greed, hatred, and delusion. So, as you are sitting here, you're sensing the aliveness and the vibrancy in the body and around the body. And also being aware of that which knows about that vibrancy, that aliveness. And with the out breath, just relaxing into the spaciousness. Bringing up that wish, may all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. Yeah, as we are collectively awakening to the understanding, that the way we have been relating to the biosphere was just much too narrow. And now we are starting to, it's like a butterfly, coming out of the chrysalis and stretching the wings. That's what we are starting to do as a species. And it's kind of scary, but it's also awesome that we can be consciously on such a threshold. It's not just happening to us, but we are engaging consciously with that, helping, to ease the transition. So maybe you've seen images, of a butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. Looks pretty intense in a way. And feeling all crunched up, in this little container, and then starting to notice that there is actually a way to mature into. And then, having practices we can do on a regular basis, which helps us to connect with that recognition. It's like encouraging those so-called imaginary cells to come to maturation and expressing that calling. Not by thinking about it, but by actively engaging in the sensing of it. Together, as a collective here on the Wednesdays, but also then on our own as well. Like breathing in and breathing out. And today, I'd like to share with you a little practice you can take home with you and then engage in nature, either in your garden or in your yard, or maybe just, looking outside the window into a space where there's some plant life, or you can also go take it on a hike. And it's called a sit spot practice or a plug-in practice. And in a moment or so, I'm going to screen share in that practice and then talk it through. And then afterwards, I will put it in the chat for you to download, so you can have it also for individual printout if you like. So before I do this, let's slowly, come back into the body. By sensing the weight and the skeletal system holding us up, the arms and legs. So I'm now gonna screen share in the practice and talk a little bit about it. Yeah. So I hope you can see that. So, the first thing is to find a spot in nature you can come back to. It's best, always going to be the same spot, or maybe, two different spots if that's necessary because of some reasons. And the point is, to come back to the same spot again and again. Maybe a tree, or maybe a rock formation, a body of water, or maybe a plant in your backyard or your garden, or maybe in the park. Just some kind of a spot which calls you. And then, you can the practice can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you can do. But what I think is important is the regularity. Because that repetition, it's like the ritual. The repetition brings familiarity, and then certain features, will start to become apparent over time. So then you ask permission to enter the space, or just maybe greeting the being you are connecting with, and then introducing yourself and offering gratitude, for having the opportunity, and then making an offering. I worked with a plant, in my backyard here, and I just take a little beautiful bowl of water, and then I just, put it on the plant. But it could be also other offerings you could bring. And then after making the offering, just, sitting or standing there and talking, what's on your mind today, sharing, and then listening. Just listening with an open heart, with an open mind. And receiving what is on offer. And then, when you feel complete for the day, departing with appreciation. So now I'm going to stop with the screen sharing again. And I'm going to put that for you into the chat. And then maybe, over time, You could also maybe research, the indigenous history of the place you are doing this practice with, maybe the geological information, the ecosystemic information, the watershed. There's lots of things you can learn about the space which will help you to more fully connect. That's what I have observed, over the time. And for me, a lot of information I got was actually through the eyes, by just sitting and observing the plant. And then all kinds of things are happening, in the visual field around the plant. And it just felt deepening, as I was doing the practice. And there's a sense of rapport which is developing through the ritualistic repetition of it. So please, take some time and try it out for yourself. And then maybe we can, speak about it, how it lands for